discuss on this issue. Thanks for joining in, Calvin. Now, a quick one. Do courts in the U.S. have the right to sue nations, independent or sovereign nations, and in this case, China?
Well, it's a complicated legal question, but here's the short answer. There are very few exceptions that where states and individuals can sue foreign countries under the Foreign States Immunities Act. Make sure I get my acronym correct. But this doesn't really fall under it. Now, what is interesting is that there are Republican senators who are allied with the president who have been trying to include some type of bioweapon exclusion to where foreign states could be held responsible in court. But like I said, as the way that the law stands now, it's not really something that could permit the lawsuit that's been filed in Missouri.
Is this really the time for this? I mean, we're at a time right now where the world is seeking to work together, work as one. The UN, the Director General of the UN talked about the world working together instead of politicizing the pandemic. Is this a time to start talking in this regard, considering the division it would cause?
Well, from a public health standpoint for the United States and the world, it's totally not the right time. But as we say here in Washington, everything's political. From a political standpoint, it's exactly on time for the Republicans and Donald Trump. And here's why. First, let's keep in mind that attorneys general in each of the states, these are political positions. These people run for these offices. And they usually have aspirations past attorney general. So they do, big things like this to build the name for themselves. And as you noted in the report, this was filed by a Republican attorney general that is allied with the president. Now, why is this helpful politically? Because guess what? If everybody in Missouri and other states that support Trump are speaking about China's role and suing China and blaming China, then they're not talking about the president's role if he did what he should have when he should have done it. Now, all that being said, I do think once the pandemic has gotten more under control, it's a very legitimate question to examine the role of China, but I think any action that should be taken should be from the federal government and not one of 50 states.
We're looking at the pandemic being over. We're not sure when, and we're hoping that it will be over soon. Now, the U.S. and China have been in a back and forth battle, economic battle, and all of that. Now, do you see this ending when this is over? Because if we're looking at legal issues now, what are the chances of it continuing after the pandemic is over? Would we be spilling into another crisis between the two countries?
Well, that remains to be seen, but my first reaction when I heard about the lawsuit from Missouri is that from a political standpoint for Donald Trump, this gives him another Trump card, no pun intended, in his negotiations. Because keep in mind, this was a state, not the federal government that filed this lawsuit. And when President Trump is negotiating with China, of course he would use this to say, what if Missouri and other states gave up these lawsuits in exchange for X, Y, and Z? So I think this can be a negotiating tool with Trump in the future after the pandemic is over.
Do you think other states will join in on this?
Yes, I think other states will. I bet if there are any more states, there'll be Republican states. And I also believe that businesses will be filing similar lawsuits. I think some already have, or at least mentioned that they might. So I don't see this going away anytime soon.
Wow. How about other countries? I mean, Germany is also towing that line.
Well, I think this does raise legitimate questions about sovereign immunity and how countries deal with other countries. I don't think that anybody's got the exact right formula on how to deal with this, to investigate it, and to hold any state actors like China responsible. But I do believe that whatever action does take place needs to be done country to country, not state to country, not private sector to country.
Yeah. What do you think China should, what should be China's reaction at this point in time?
Well, I think China's reaction now should be to, in as much as it can, to clarify any actions that they're being accused of, or at least going forward, be more open with data, be more open with what they've observed since the beginning of the pandemic. Now, there's still going to be blame, but I think as far as helping the world through this, the more transparent and honest they are with what happened and what's happening will be the best move for all of us.
Right, final question before I let you go. Where do you see this ending up? After all is said and done, what direction do you see this?
Well, I do believe that with the international community is going to start examining the way that the World Health Organization works, how countries work together to face pandemics like this. I do think that there will be many lessons learned, and I do think that people will be more vigilant going forward. And I think that's a good thing. The challenge is going to be, how do we balance the blame game and making sure that those who are responsible are held responsible without stopping that international cooperation we need to stave off future pandemic threats.
Calvin, thanks for your thoughts in this direction.